On March 1st, 2022, the armed forces of Ukraine successfully defended the area around Kruty from a Russian army attack during the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, with Russians losing nearly 200 men before the fighting Russian soldiers took photos at the memorial to the heroes of Kruty and then vandalized it. Wait a second. Them Russian bastards, they killed like 200 boys, at the Battle of Kruty in 1918, January 30th, 1918. Them fucking Bolshevik Russian fucks, they killed 200 to 300 Ukrainian boys at the Battle of Kruty. And now we're seeing that they just killed 200 Russians. That's some poetic justice. 200 Russians in exchange for to the memory of the 30s. At the Askold Cemetery, they were buried. This is a poem to the memory of the 30s. At the Askold Cemetery, they were buried. The 30 martyrs, Ukrainians, the glorious young. At the Askold Cemetery, the Ukrainian bloom. By the bloody roadway for us to follow into the world, onto whom has dared to rise the betrayer's hand. Sun is blooming, wind is playing in the Dnieper River. Against whom has Cain committed? O Lord, punish them over everything they loved. It was their loved land. They died in the New Testament. In the glory of saints. At the Askold Cemetery, they were buried. Ukrainian troops took up defense near the Kruty station on January morning 29th. No, it would be the 30th. Because the Soviets don't understand history. January, some morning, the 29th or the 30th, 1918, you had an assault on the Ukrainian positions by more than 5,000 Bolshevik detachments of the Petrograd and Moscow Red Guards. The Moscow Red Guards began the Ukrainian army, which was destined to enter into a bloody battle with this horde, numbered about 300 students of the student team, 250 the first Ukrainian military school, and nearly 40 Haidamaks. So you had 40 Haidamaks, and you had 300 cadets. In late December 1917, the Soviet government launched an open aggression against the Ukrainian People's Republic. The Central Rada had 822 Ukrainian representatives, 822 delegates. The United States government only has, 425 plus 100, 525? So the Central Rada in Ukraine was a better people's representative than U.S. Congress is today. The Bolsheviks were extremely annoyed with Ukraine's proclamation of independence, which January 22, 1918. They had announced independence like in March, and then in May, and then in, fucking August, and then they did it again. The Bolsheviks are pissed off. What, Ukraine? You think you're your own country? You think you could go out and survive on your own without me? Without me? Ike Turner said to Tina initially. Moscow established a separate Ukrainian Red government with its capital in Kharkiv, which in fact declared war on an independent part of the state and then armed forces. Baltic sailors, Red Army thugs from Moscow, Petrograd, Pskov, Smolensk, and others also armed. It was presented as a civil war. One only had to look at their faces and see the exalted expression of one's eyes to understand that all reasonable arguments were powerless to change their decision to go to the front and fight the enemies of the Ukrainian state. Nevertheless, their commanders remained concerned about the students' lack of combat experience. A limited amount of ammunition was allocated to the student battalion because there were many who did not know how to shoot. Under the command of Captain Nosenko on January 28th, the troops began to position themselves at either side of the railway embankment, digging trenches to fortify their positions. The student battalion, led by Captain Omelchenko, was positioned away from the railroad station and held the left-hand side of the line, whilst awaiting the arrival of the Bolshevik forces. After the shooting, the Bolsheviks did not allow local peasants to bury the bodies of the dead. Only after the liberation of Kiev from the Reds on the order of the Ukrainian government on March 19th, 1918, were they able to do a solemn funeral of the dead for the Battle of Kruty at the Askhold's tomb in Kiev that took place. At the funeral of the fallen heroes, the chairman of the Ukrainian Central Rada, the People's Republic, Mikhailo Hrushevsky, that's the president of Ukraine, Mikhailo Hrushevsky. Remember the leader of the Rada? They had 822 representatives, which is several hundred more than the goddamn U.S. Congress in 2022 today. Called the young men who died in the unequal struggle heroes. And the poet Pavlo Tichina dedicated the poem Memory of the 30 to the heroic act. Memory of the 30. Memory of the 30 boys who gave their lives. Memory of the 30. Because they're like, what? The Russian Bolsheviks are in our country? Well, we've been training for this. We got to shoot and kill them, right? We've been training for this, and they're coming to our country. Yeah, we've been training, and of course, we're going to fight for our country. That's what we do. And so they gave a last stand. And even though they're going to lose the battle, they're actually going to postpone the battle. They're going to postpone the taking of Kiev, and then that's able to, it wasn't all for naught. It wasn't all for naught. It also shows you, the idealism and the passion that these boys had for their country. Well, we might die. Well, of course we might. We're defending our land. I mean, that's what the fuck, I signed up for goddamn to be a cadet because of these fucking Russian fucking bastards. And the shit that they, did back in the 1870s. Don't tell me you forgot about the 1870s. So they appreciated the growing ferocity of the defense offered by the Ukrainian resistance, ended his telegram by warning, at the moment I'm facing Kruty. In a telegram by Muravyov to the headquarters of a fellow commander, he stated, the way to Kiev seems to be open, but the enemy retreating blows up bridges and roads, which creates great difficulties for us. He appreciated the growing ferocity of the defense offered by the Ukrainian resistance, ended his telegram by warning, at the moment I'm facing Kruty, which I did not take only for the above reasons. The enemy retreating closer to Kiev begins to put up fierce resistance. Ukrainian intelligence watched as Bolshevik units arrived on the horizon and made their approach to Kruty's railroad station, which marked the start of the hostilities. The battle would rage for 5 hours with bitter fighting around the railroad station and the hastily constructed trenches. One Red soldier recalled that as we approached the station, each of us clearly heard the moans of comrades falling from enemy fire, whilst another gave the following description of the grim conditions at the front. The field, the arable field, the mud, it's hard to go. There are no trenches, and there were trenches on the enemy side, and in addition, the enemy had a lot of machine guns. In total, 28 students would be captured by the Bolsheviks and later tortured and shot and killed before the execution of one student, 19-year-old Hry Pipsky, Hry Pipsky. Good old Pipsky, 19-year-old Pipsky, sang the anthem. Ukraine is not dead yet, as a sign of defiance. Oh my God. Ukraine is not dead yet. And the other students did the same. That's their national anthem today. Ukraine is not dead yet. That reminds me of that American revolutionary, goddamn, Nathaniel something. My only regret is that I only have one life to give for the revolution. It also reminds me of there's one folks was a submarine. It was their last words to the world, and they just sang a song before getting shot and killed forever. Suffering heavy casualties, the courageous display of resistance by the outnumbered and outgunned Ukrainian troops would ultimately fail to stop the Bolshevik forces from advancing, with the capital falling only a week later. Commanding Red Officer Muraviv claimed to have bravely fought for 2 days against the Ukrainian National Republic forces allegedly led by Petlura. Other claims dealt with the number of casualties between 500 and reaching into the thousands. In actuality, Muraviv required 2 days to fix the rail station and reorganize. There's no official estimate for the number of dead, but according to the participants of the battle, around 250 to 300 Ukrainian defenders died at Kruty. Only the names of those captured are available. The community reminds us that the Ukrainian city of Kruty is a symbol of the struggle for Ukraine's independence. In 1918, a battle took place here between the army of the Ukrainian People's Republic and the Bolsheviks who attacked Kyiv. Then the Ukrainians were forced to retreat. 18 of the students were reburied at Askhold's grave in the center of Kyiv after the return of the Central Rada to the capital in March 1918. At the funeral, then President of the Ukrainian People's Republic, Mikhailo Hrushevsky, called every one of the 400 students who fought in the battle and died heroes. In addition, poet Pavlo Tichina said to the memory of the 30s about the heroic death of the students after the fall of the Ukrainian People's Republic. The bodies of the students were moved to the Lukyanivsky Cemetery in Kyiv. The Kruty Heroes Monument was erected on the site of the historical battle. The battle is remembered each year on or around January 29th or the 30th. Ukrainian youngsters lost their lives to stop the Bolshevik Army of Russia. Lieutenant General Nikolai Muravyov from advancing on Kyiv. Young people like Spartan soldiers died for the sake of their motherland in a struggle against foreign aggressors, and it was an example of their sacrifice and selfless love for their native land. Every anniversary of the Heroes of Kruty is not only a day to honor those people who loved our motherland more than their lives, it's also another reminder to our contemporary politicians regarding their responsibility for the fate of their countrymen, of their people and their fellow countrymen. Ex-Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko said about the battle, "A quick-fire Russian advance looked impossible. January 5th, 1918, students from the St. Volodymyr Kyiv University and the Ukrainian People's University, along with older students from a local high school, created their own volunteer unit. And whilst many of the volunteers had no previous military experience, they were filled with idealism about the prospect of an independent Ukraine. Despite a severe shortage of weapons and equipment, on January 27th, this student battalion of sick riflemen reached Kruty Railroad Station, 130 kilometers northeast of Kyiv. The following day, they linked up with a company from Khmelnytsky Cadet School and a small number of free Cossacks, giving them a total of between 400 to 600 troops, 300 of which were students, alongside 2 armored trains. The challenge in front of them was formidable, with the Bolshevik army of 4,000 troops under the command of Mikhail Muraviv. The Y isn't a Y, it's an I. Muravov, now advancing on their position. Here are some of the names of the dead. You should check out the movie. The movie's only got like 2,000 views on YouTube. There was one scene where they're all killing each other, but there wasn't no blood on the, snow. So I'm expecting fucking Hollywood, shit. It was it was high quality stuff that come out of Ukraine. So it was a movie that, came out not a few years ago. So, check it out. I'm watching it. It's enjoyable on my... So, the youngest person that was killed at the Battle of Kruty was an 11-year-old. The youngest soldier was in the 6th grade, Leonid Butkevich. So, R.I.P. Leonid Butkevich. Then Serhiy, H-I-Y, Serhiy. Zach Volsky. He's going to die. Yakov Ryobokin, Rohoza Rozanov, Vladimir Shulhin, Ivano Hrushevsky. He was later an Orthodox priest who eventually died in a Soviet prison, a brother of the statesman, some officer in the Polish army. That Serhiy Zakhelvatsky, he was renowned for imprisoning an entire company of Red Army in 1920 while heading one of the cavalry squads of the Zalizniak Cavalry Regiment. Petro Franchuk, one of the members of the SS Halichina. Averky Honcharenko, 1943, one of the organizers of the SS Halichina. What is this? SS Halichina, of which he was a commander. We'll check it out later, but SS, that's never good, is it? Mykola Krivopusk and Hanat Marty Inyuk, 1920 to 21, served as personal guards of Simon Petlyura Martinyuk after becoming a priest. Perished in Volyn in 1943 under unknown circumstances. Averky Honcharenko, he was killed, or he was there in 1943. Oh yeah, the Makelo Mikhailik later wrote a detailed memoir of the battle. Mitrofan Shividan later continued to fight on the Shooter and Free Ukraine armored trains, and in 1941 organized the Lusk Battalion of the OUN, the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. And, so there you go. There's a couple names of the people that died. Leonid Butkevich, I think, is the one name that sticks out to me. This Yakiv, I don't know who the Yakiv guy is. And then that renowned guy, that Zach Hilvalsky, Zakhelvatsky. So Serhiy Zakhelvatsky, he became an officer in the Polish army, and then he, imprisoned an entire company of Red Army, which that's got to be an awesome story. Sounds like the greatest story ever. There was that one time when I captured a whole army of Bolsheviks. Yeah? Yeah, it's back in 1920. Yeah, I remember the dude was on